Hi, and welcome back to our webinar series for comparison shopping services. My name is Sarah.
And my name is Oyvind.
And we both work as shopping specialists here in the Dublin office of Google.
And today we're moving from the Merchant Center account into the Google Ads account to talk about shopping campaign structure.
If you are interested in checking out our previous videos on Merchant Center, then remember to visit our YouTube playlist linked below.
So let's have a look at what we'll cover today. For the first part, we'll cover campaign settings, as shopping campaigns can be modified from the setup to meet your needs.
Campaign structure methodology, to see how the underlying logic of shopping campaigns work and what is good to keep in mind when structuring campaigns.
And we'll go through 3 use cases that show different options when structuring your account setup. Now, note that these are merely ideas to provide inspiration and explain some of the logic behind the various options. No one structure is better than the other, but they should rather be adapted to your or your merchant's KPIs. Firstly, let's take a quick look at what the account settings can offer.
The basic recommendation when setting up a structure for your CSS activity is to use one Google Ads account per merchant. This gives you more flexibility down the road to do things like conversion tracking or separate billing or campaign reporting. What you want to avoid is to be in a situation where you see that your current structure doesn't work as well as you had hoped, and you have to redo a lot of the setup, as this can cause a lot of unnecessary work. When setting up campaigns, there are several settings you can leverage. Let's have a look at these in the Google Ads interface.
I'm now in the campaign menu of a Google Ads account. Since I'm looking to set up a brand new campaign, I'll click the blue plus button here and select New Campaign. If you have an existing campaign that you simply want to duplicate, you can do this too through the Load Campaign Settings function. For now though, let's go with a new campaign. Here I'll choose Shopping Campaign, and for this demo, I'll choose to set up a campaign without any specific goal. Here we see that Google Ads has already pulled in my linked Merchant Center account and selected it for me. I now choose the country I would like to target with my campaign, and here I want to pick Ireland. We'll make sure we have the standard shopping campaign chosen and click Continue. We'll enter a campaign name and check the bidding strategy. Manual CPC is what I want in this case. Once we've entered a bid, then we've got our basic settings covered. However, you also have a few more advanced settings that can help you refine your campaign and account structure. If I click Additional Settings here, I'll get 3 more options. For now, we'll focus on the inventory filter. The inventory filter can be a great help if you've decided to run several campaigns for the same merchant. Instead of segmenting items through the product groups, you can do this at the outset. Just choose Filter and select the attribute you want to filter by. You might have a custom label for holiday sale, for example, which would show up here. Now, in this case, we have no live products, so you also won't see any active filters. Down here in campaign priority, I can also choose which priority my campaign should have, low, medium, or high. But what does this mean in practice? You can use campaign priorities to your advantage. Campaign priorities won't affect your search relevance or influence the likelihood of your product showing for a specific query. Rather, priorities are a useful feature to set which products and their corresponding bids are most important to you or your merchant.
For example, a jewelry retailer may choose to prioritize competitive bids from a seasonal campaign containing Mother's Day products by setting the campaign priority to high. This way, the retailer's bid will remain strong against competitors when they activate the campaign for Mother's Day. Now that we've seen how you can utilize campaign setting, let's go one step further and see how you can use Google Ads to create a logical structure in ad groups and product groups.
We mentioned in the beginning that Google Ads and Merchant Center are partly intertwined. This is because there are 6 attributes in a Google feed that can be used in Google Ads to structure shopping campaigns or even to break out product groups. These are Google Product Category, Brand, Item ID, Condition, Product Type, and Custom Label.
While the first 4 attributes highlighted here in gray use standard values, Product Type and Custom Label are feed attributes that are customizable. Product type can hold a very own product categorization system of the merchant, so this is highly customizable. Custom label are even more flexible and can hold values of any kind. Whatever merchants want to use in order to group or label certain products, custom label is the feed attribute that can be used for this purpose.
Now, if we go into a Google Ads account, we'll see that the system pulls these 6 feed attributes and even lets you suggest them as individual columns for reporting purposes. This gives you a quick and easy overview of your feed specifications in the shopping campaigns. These attributes give us a whole lot of flexibility when it comes to how we want to structure campaigns and what methodology we use when doing this across several campaigns and merchants. As we can see here, there are a lot of different ways we can leverage segmentation methods to achieve different KPIs. Use case A focuses on the margin of sales, but also takes into consideration that different product groups will have different prerequisites. A high margin on sneakers will probably be a different number than a high margin for boots.
Use case B is brand focused, where brand and non-brand items are segmented and bid on differently. Each level in the funnel contains the same amount of products, but negative keywords are leveraged here to narrow the funnel, from triggering on very generic search terms to triggering on only very specific product queries.
Use case C shows a broad to narrow structure, where bidding can be broken down into individual item ID level if desired. It also shows you how you can segment out bestsellers to promote them.
We'll go through all of these use cases in more detail in a second, but before we start, it's important to note that these cases are only meant to give you ideas and inspiration to how you can set up your own campaign structure methodology. Maybe you find that a combination of these works best for you, or elements of one use case fits very well with another different use case. You need to see what works for you.
Now that we've provided an overview of the underlying logic of Google Ads and the methodology you can use, let's take a look into these use cases for segmentation. And as we just mentioned, none of these are perfect fit for all cases, but should be adapted to you or your merchant's KPIs.
Use case A shows how a campaign can be structured using margins for groups of products. Here we have an example of a hypothetical fashion retailer who has many different product offerings and have segmented based on product types. They run different campaigns for shoes, handbags, hats, and so on. The campaign on the left-hand side shows all products under the category shoes. Other product types go in different campaigns in this scenario. The shoe campaign is then further divided by second-level product types, so sneakers, running shoes, and boots have each been given separate ad groups.
The reason we want to keep sneakers and boots in separate groups is to set unique margins. These ad groups have been divided further into product groups, where the margin of each item is the deciding factor. The bids have been set accordingly, so that items with a higher margin has higher bids, in the end ensuring that the merchant maximizes the return on ad spend. A product that sells well, but has a very low margin might be less relevant to promote than a high-end pair of boots, for example, that sells less, but with a much higher revenue per sale. As previously mentioned as well, using custom labels to divide by margin is a very, very useful way to set up this kind of structure.
The second use case takes the 80-20 rule to determine whether a given merchant shows mainly on generic queries, such as running shoes, or if they show more on branded terms, such as Adidas sneakers. The 80-20 rule means you'll run an analysis on about 20% of the queries that typically drive 80% of the traffic. Keep in mind these are approximate numbers, but often a small percentage of queries drive a large percentage of traffic, and that's why you should be focusing on here. See what proportion of the queries are brand term versus non-brand terms, and if relevant, run tests to determine the volume of branded queries.
Let's say you find that you trigger a lot of branded queries and want to differentiate your traffic by brand versus generic, because branded terms bring in more qualified traffic, so they're more valuable to your merchant. You can, for example, set up 2 campaigns targeting the same products, one campaign for generic and one for brand. Now, why would you target the same products in 2 different campaigns? It's because you'll use campaign priority, different bids, and negative keywords for targeting. Let's take a look at this in a bit more detail.
Here we see how the setup would look represented by a funnel. The same products are repeated in all 3 campaigns, but the negative search terms narrows the funnel. In the top of the funnel, we find the generic queries for this merchant, such as track shoes or runners. We've set the priority of this campaign to high because we want to make sure that this campaign is at the forefront of our strategy. This is the campaign that's designed to capture all possible traffic. However, we set the bids quite low because the traffic tends to be less valuable in terms of sales. We want to show ads, but it doesn't make sense to pay a high cost per click. We've also added a list of negative keywords here, so we don't show on any brand searches like Adidas sneakers and so on. Those searches are instead captured by the next level in the funnel.
The second level is the branded campaign. The campaign priority here is medium because it should be secondary to the generic campaign. After all, this campaign only gets the traffic that the generic one has explicitly been set up not to capture through the use of negative keywords. The bids here are set to medium because these search queries are more valuable to the merchant than generic ones. If we want to refine further by individual products like bestsellers, that's also possible. We'll add the product names as negative keywords in the branded campaign and set up a product level campaign. The same logic would be repeated here by setting the campaign priority to low, as it's the last campaign in the funnel, but we'll set the bids high. After all, any search queries triggering this campaign are likely to come from users who are looking for very specific products and are probably closer to purchasing.
There is no set formula to explain how you can get the most out of a shopping campaign, as this will vary based on many factors like which market you target, time of year, which vertical you're looking at, and so much more. However, a tiered broad to narrow approach is often used as we've seen in the examples.
Use case C shows a more general approach to segmentation, as it leaves a lot of room for you to decide what to do. Here you can segment categories and subcategories, as we see in the green graphics, based on what's important to you. The top KPI could dictate how you segment, or you could segment based on seasonal sales.
Remember to choose a campaign structure that works best for you. If you have thousands or millions of products, breaking down each individual product to item ID level, it may result in a lot of manual work, and it becomes too complex to handle. Move item IDs to the higher product group they belong to, for example, product type or brand. If, however, you have a very small portfolio, this might be the structure for you. Group similar products together and consider testing a hybrid approach if a small amount of item IDs drive a large portion of your traffic and deserve separate bidding. Keep other item IDs aggregated in the most relevant product group.
Hopefully this webinar on campaign structure and methodology has given you a lot of good information and something to think about going forward.
And if you want to stay up to date for the next coming webinars, please subscribe to our channel. We hope you tune in next time and see you around.
See you then.